Everybody. Welcome in to another episode of the NFL Seekers podcast. Today, we're going to be predicting and deep diving into the AFC East. We'll be talking about each team's offseason starting lineups. We'll each predict each team's record, the winner of the division, and we'll give out the division awards at the end as well. Super excited to talk about the AFC East. It's kind of going to be a competitive arms race of a division, some young, fun, talented quarterbacks in this division. So I'm pretty excited to talk about this. And like the Bills and Dolphins at the top are going to be real juggernauts. So I am pretty excited about this division. How are you, Josh?
Doing good. Thank God it's Friday. Been a long week, so glad to rewind down and get a little podcasting in. And this is a super fun division. Really excited to talk about the AFC East. And man, it's just football's in the air. Mock drafts going crazy. Just bought a pumpkin candle today, so got the house smelling all pumpkin and fall. So it's the best time of the year, man. I just can't be any more pumped. And thank God it's Friday.
Yeah, thank God it's almost football season. We're starting to feel those vibes. It's perfect weather outside. It's almost fall. It's pretty crazy to even think about. But let's get right into it. Let's get into the deep diving, and we'll start out with the New England Patriots. Went 4-13 last year. It earned them the third overall pick, but we don't need to talk about last year because I think the losing was completely worth it because they got our boy Drake May, our number two player in this entire class. Should have been the number two overall pick. The Patriots really lucked in to that one. So we'll go on to their offseason because it's all positive. We'll talk up Drake May this entire episode, really. We absolutely love the guy and we can't wait to see him in action. I mean, we already saw in the preseason game, he had a beautiful dime downfield to Javon Baker, and we're going to see a lot of those. He's a beautiful arm. He's a Jordan Love, Justin Herbert regen, in my opinion. But yeah, we'll go into the offseason additions. We can start out with Drake May, who we'll talk about a lot this episode. So we'll also talk about his running mate, the guy that will start over him at the beginning of the season, Jacoby Brissett, very underrated quarterback, a very serviceable starting quarterback in the NFL. He'll definitely help keep the bridge afloat, and he'll be a very solid, reliable option. So I like bringing him in. He's better than a few starting quarterbacks in the NFL, to say the least. The rest of their offseason was kind of just re-signings. They really went and kind of bringing back their own talent. They re-signed Mike Onwenu, who's kind of like a borderline top 10 tackle. He's very solid. So I love that. They bring in Kyle Duggar, Hunter Henry they re-signed, and then they also re-signed Josh Uche and Kendrick Bourne. So they really bring in their homegrown talent. And then they also bring in Antonio Gibson to be that kind of third down back for Ramondre. And then they bring in KJ Osborne from the Vikings. Notable losses, really just Matt Judon. Yesterday, he was traded to the Falcons. So that is a big loss. It'll be hard to kind of fill in his role with Josh Uche and Anthony Jennings, to say the least. Matt Judon's a complete stud, and he's going to be awesome for the Falcons. But, this team is kind of in that young youth movement rebuilding mode. So I understand it. They also lose Trent Brown to the Bengals, who will be awesome. But, he is 31 years old. So pretty expected offseason, but you hit the number three overall pick out of the park.
Yeah, and that's really what it is. It is a hard reset for the Patriots. Obviously, Bill Belichick is gone. Now the future is Gerard Mayo as your head coach. And so it looks like it's going to be pretty much, a hard competitive just rebuild. And they do the perfect thing with drafting Drake May at number three. Drake May, and me, in your opinion, right now, looks like a franchise quarterback. He looks like he's going to be the second best quarterback from this draft class. We will hold strong to that. He was our quarterback number two, and he's just got that prototypical NFL body. We think he's smart. We think he's a capable runner. He's got an incredible arm. And the Patriots are lucky. I think they got a cornerstone to build around for the next decade. And to go a little bit more into their offseason, you go into the draft and you go get him as wide receiver, hopefully one and two of the future in Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. And so it's going to be a young, offense, but with I'm sure lots of room to grow. There's not much experience from these young guys who hopefully get some playing time this year, but the future is bright for the Patriots. I don't know how bright it is this year. I think it's going to be a little bit of a struggle this year, just getting used to everything and all these players coming together and clicking, and it's a totally new regime and scheme. I mean, Bill Belichick has been there for the last 2 decades. And so it's going to be a culture shock for Patriots fans, but it's going to be a fun one because you do just have the right piece in Drake May.
Yeah, absolutely. You worded that well. It will be really fun to watch these young guys mold together, grow together, develop together. So let's go on to the roster. Let's talk about the offense. Obviously, we love Drake May. We are just as high on him as anyone you will see. We are very confident that he is a franchise quarterback. No need to rush him in, though. Jacoby Brissett is a very, very solid quarterback. As you see, he had an 84.6 PFF grade the last time he was out there. He's a very reliable bridge quarterback. So I like that. And let's just kind of say it for what it is. This offense is really Ramondre Stevenson and the interior offensive line versus the world. It really is. It's not a talented receiving core. The tackles are a problem. They're abysmal. They will be the reason they don't win a lot of games ultimately. But let's talk about the positives first. I don't know what this graphic's doing. Antonio Gibson won't start. Ramondre will start. And watching the Patriots tape back, I was really impressed by Ramondre last year. He was kind of the sole bright spot in this team. Maybe Mike Onwenu as well, but he was really awesome. He's a really underrated receiver. He can pound it down the middle. He's just really physical. Like his build, I absolutely love him. I'm targeting him in fantasy. I think he's a good value in fantasy right now, and he's going to get a pretty good production here. And then, like I said, the interior offensive line I really do like with David Andrews, Mike Onwenu, and City So, or Cole Strange when he comes back off the pup. I think it's a very solid interior. The tackles is what really scares me. You've got Chuk or Okorafor coming over from the Steelers, who's been one of the worst tackles that I've seen in recent years. And then your left tackle competition is between Verdarian Lowe and it looks like Caden Wallace. Third round pick is going to win it. I think I can speak for both of us. We were really low on Caden Wallace. We thought he's more like a fifth to sixth to seventh round guy. Seeing him go in the third round is pretty crazy. And seeing him starting day one, it is kind of frightening. So I don't love that with this receiving core as well. It's a little rough.
Just to speak on the Patriots, it felt like a normal Patriots draft. It felt like Gerard Mayo was taking right out of the playbook of Bill Belichick. And that whole regime and how they draft. But like Layden Robinson in the fourth, probably more of a sixth, seventh round talent. It was with those two, the tackle and the interior guard they drafted. It definitely felt like a Patriots draft for sure. Maybe a little bit of reaches. I mean, I think the first two picks, obviously in Drake May and Jalen Polk, you knock it out of the park, which I'm just really excited to see those guys play together. But yeah, it's a team, like you said, it is Ramondre and the interior offensive line against the world. Those middle three are really good, but your tackles, man, I think you're right. No, no need to rush Drake May out there. To get eaten alive by the Wolves. Let Jacoby Brissett be the bridge quarterback. Get the season flowing. Get these guys into midseason form, and then 6, 7 weeks into the season when Jacoby Brissett is dead, then you can bring Drake May up to play, and that should hopefully give your fan base some hope moving forward when they see Drake May 80-yard bomb to Jalen Polk or Javon Baker or Pop Douglas. It should be pretty fun.
Yeah, exactly. We're fully confident that they do have their franchise quarterback in this room. He has the upside to be a top 5 to 10 quarterback. He makes some freaky, freaky throws. He can create some freaky arm angles. He has a strong, crazy strong arm, can throw it outside of the stadium. But yeah, the tackles are truly season wrecking. Like those tackles, you can't just go into a season with those tackles and expect to really have any success. And then the receiving core, I would say, is the worst in the NFL right now. There's some fun young pieces, but there's entirely unproven. I think Jalen Polk will end up starting on the outside, especially with Kendrick Bourne on the pup. I think it's a lock that Polk starts on the outside. Pop Douglas was really fun as a slot receiver. Could be a fun, sleeper fantasy option. Hunter Henry's always that old reliable. He's going to be a pretty reliable tight end for Jacoby Brissett, the veterans. But yeah, ultimately, there's just not enough firepower. I will say Brandon Ayuk, he didn't want to go to the Patriots because he didn't like the quarterbacks. I will say I don't know if Brandon Ayuk knows that much about football because if you just watch Drake May, if I was a receiver, I'd want to play with him. But I understand the rest of the core. So anything else you want to say on the offense?
No, no, it should, from a fantasy aspect, I would really recommend the only relevant fantasy player this year is Ramondre Stevenson. And obviously you can throw your dart throws, at some of the receivers if, off the waiver wire. But really the only guy you're drafting from a fantasy aspect, unless it's dynasty, obviously go get Drake May, but it's really Ramondre Stevenson for this Patriots offense, and that's really the only value.
Are you throwing a dart at Polk in case he's their wide receiver one and gets a lot of volume? Or
Oh gosh, Polk could be a dart throw, Obviously, I wouldn't say in the top 10 rounds of your fantasy draft. I would wait till 12 to 14, 15, depending on how many bench slots you have. But yeah, he could be worth the dart throw. Jalen Polk was really impressive at Washington. He really was. He, could have been considered a wide receiver one there if it wasn't for Rome Odunze. But yeah, I think they're worth a dart throw. And Hunter Henry, he's just kind of that guy who's on and off the waiver wire, just depending on the matchup, in my opinion.
yeah, absolutely. Some dart throws if they fall late rounds, but we'll move on to the defense. This defense is always solid. Gerard Mayo will kind of have that same Bill Belichick scheme. The Belichick um, scheme will kind of live on in New England. So the defense will be really a tough out. They'll make it hard on teams. They'll make these games closer than they should be. I do want to start it out with Christian Barmore. He's not on here right now because he does have a blood clot situation, which is really scary because he was a borderline superstar last year. So that is a huge loss depending on how long he's out for. I truly think he's a budding superstar in this league. So I really love him. You do have some other stars on this defense. You got Jelani Tavai. He was a fourth graded linebacker last year, 86.6 PFF grade. Jabril Peppers, he's the fifth graded safety in the NFL last year with the 87 PFF grade. And I do really love the outside corners and Christian Gonzalez and Marcus Jones. Jonathan Jones, Marcus Jones in the slot. I do think it's a pretty solid all-around defense. You've got Kyle Duggar on the back end as well. It is just kind of, no Matt Judon for the temporary, no Barmore. The defensive line will be kind of a struggle just looking at those names, looking at those grades. Uche, Anthony Jennings, Keon White, they all have a lot to prove and they really have to kind of ball out. But it's a solid defense all around.
Yeah, no, it is going to be a solid defense, and it is going to be a team that relies heavily upon their defense. You got a defensive-minded head coach, obviously, in Gerard Mayo, who's going to take, like you just said perfectly, it's going to be that Bill Belichick type defense. They're going to be hard-nosed. They're always going to be competitive. They're going to create turnovers, and that's what I really like about this team is it just feels like you got a lot of guys that can flip the field. They can turn the ball over. They can always make plays. The Patriots always play above their salaries. Kyle Duggar, Jabril Peppers, the Joneses, Christian Gonzalez, in my opinion, is gonna be a superstar. If he didn't get hurt last year, he's probably in that top 10, corner range already. I wouldn't even be surprised if he cracks that top five this year because he is gonna be a bona fide superstar corner. He's got some of the most clean feet, technique, size, everything you want to see, ball skills from a corner. So they really hit that draft pick out of the park. I can't believe he fell to them in what pick was it? Was it 18?
It was somewhere between 15 and 18. Yeah, crazy
Yeah.
stuff.
It was ridiculous for a guy that could have been a top five player. But yeah, this is a hard-nosed defense, and they're just going to be just fine. And like you said, it's too bad Christian Barmore, has this blood clot because I agree with you. I think he's kind of on that Quinnen Williams path, where it takes him a year or two, but he's really just going to become that superstar. One of the best in the NFL at his position.
Yeah, and I love you talking about Gonzalez. I loved Gonzo coming out of Oregon. I kind of said coming out that he was a corner built in a lab to be a all-pro corner. I predicted that he would be a top 10 corner in the NFL as a rookie. So that injury was really unfortunate, but sneak peek, we'll talk about him later. I really am high on his outlook and I just think he's going to be absolutely awesome this year. So with that,
One
do you want
more
to give
player,
your,
Dan.
oh,
Well, sorry, one more player. I don't know if you said his name.
wait, Jalen Hawkins? Were you going to say Jalen Hawkins?
Well, yeah, Jalen
That was
Hawkins.
nice. That was a nice
Yeah.
sign.
Yeah, they are very good at taking Chargers safeties who are cheap and very, very productive and turning them into great players. Adrian Phillips obviously is still a free agent. He was awesome for the Patriots. Jalen Hawkins is just the reincarnation of Adrian Phillips. And then what do you think? Remember Marte Mapu at a Sacramento State?
Oh,
The
dog,
backup
yeah.
safety. So, there's some fun players, in this secondary. Marco Wilson, Sean Wade. I mean, there's fun, not superstars, but just solid role players, behind the starters.
Yeah, look for Mapu to even play some linebacker. He'll kind of be in that Duggar role, so love him as well. Do you want to give your record prediction for the Patriots?
Yes, sir. That's going to be 5-12 is what I have the Patriots going this year. I think it's going to be a struggle. I think they're going to start off really slow. I think once Drake May comes into the end of the season, you could see a couple wins stack up. But, this, in my opinion, is the last place team in this division. And it is just from a talent aspect. They're just the least talented roster in the AFC East. And it's just what's going to be preventing them, from being in playoff contention. And they're still a couple years out. I think they're a young, good team, but when you're facing superstars, in this division, and Tyreek Hills and Josh Allen's and Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson's, just there's better teams, and sadly the Patriots just aren't there yet.
Absolutely. I'm on the same wavelength. I have them finishing fourth in a division with a 4-13 record. Not great, but this roster compared to the rest of the AFC just doesn't fully match up. Those tackles will be a problem. And Vegas right now has them with a 4.5 point over under win total. They're the favorite to have the number one overall pick. So I guess I'm kind of with Vegas as well. I think they'll be right there, and maybe they can get Drake May, his franchise tackle, and then they'll be really cooking if they can bring in a star receiver next year as well. So I'm kind of on to 2025 for the Patriots. But with that, let's move on to the next team, the New York Jets. Very, very safe to say they got ultimately better just because they get Aaron Rodgers in here healthy. So it's safe to say they got far better from last year. They still finished 7-10 because this defense is so incredible. As you see right here, they had the number one. No, this is pretty crazy. They had the number one defense grade in PFF and the number 32 offense grade. I don't know if that's ever happened in the history of the NFL. That's incredible.
Impressive. I mean, the quarterback play was just absolutely atrocious last year, and this defense literally. I mean, when you're competing with the Mahomeses, I mean, this defense was just. I mean, I almost felt bad for the Jets defense because it was. I mean, this was. And what were they? I don't know. I should have looked this up beforehand, but they're probably one of the number one scoring defenses in the NFL, probably outside of the Cowboys. But oh my gosh, this defense was the sole reason this team has a single win on the board. Because I mean, they were holding teams to 3, 6, 10 points and then still losing. So, you got to feel for the defense, but Aaron Rodgers can stay healthy. It's a different team. Let's just say that 32 should change.
Yeah, it's kind of scary to think about with how good this defense was that you could argue the defense got better. They stayed about the same, and the team got insanely better because we'll go on to their offseason. They bring in a healthy Aaron Rodgers, and then they really attack the offensive line to hopefully keep Aaron Rodgers healthy. So we'll start it off with the offensive line additions. You bring in Tyron Smith, the legend tackle over from Dallas. Absolutely love that signing. You just got to attack the offensive line help. They go and draft Olu Fashanu with the 10th overall pick. Really solid pass protecting tackle with some high upside, really good athlete. You also bring in two good linemen from Baltimore, John Simpson to play guard, and then Morgan Moses to start at right tackle. So you really attacked offensive line. They had the self-awareness to know that's kind of it was a weakness, and now they have a really, really strong offensive line, and it's a stacked, deep offensive line as well. They also bring in Tyrod Taylor, so now they have a few actual quarterback options to go to if Aaron Rodgers goes down. There's a few young quarterbacks as well, like Jordan Travis. So I really do like their offseason. I guess we kind of have to talk about Hassan Reddick. They trade for Hassan Reddick, and now he already requests a trade out. So that was a little bit odd. Hopefully Reddick can come in because this team's locked and loaded, ready for a Super Bowl if Rodgers is healthy. So hopefully they can figure out that Reddick situation. But that was very odd. And then their notable losses are Bryce Huff, who goes over to the Eagles, kind of a not a trade, but kind of a trade for Reddick. And then they also trade John Franklin Myers to the Broncos after that Reddick trade, and then they lose Jordan Whitehead to the Bucks. But this team's a lot better.
Yeah, and Mike Williams, add that to the receiver core. That's going to be a big time target for Aaron Rodgers in the red zone, a big time deep target, probably the best 50-50 guy, maybe him or George Pickens, you choose your flavor, but one of the better 50-50, NFL catchers ever, in my opinion, in Mike Williams. So brutal loss for the Chargers. Great addition for the Jets there. But yeah, it was a pretty fun offseason for them, obviously. I think they move off of their former second overall pick, who was a bust, and you bring in a better backup in case, Aaron Rodgers goes down and Tyrod Taylor, who can be a game manager and who can win games, and if the defense holds somebody to 10 points, he can help. He should be able to put up 14 points for the team to win. So it should be a completely different outlook with or without Aaron Rodgers healthy. So Jets fans should be excited because I think they're in good hands.
Speaking of, they should be excited. Let's just go into this roster because it's kind of stupid. It's kind of ridiculous. There's not even really much to talk about with this roster because it's just perfect. It's just set. There isn't a weak spot to talk about. We were saying they should attack weapons before the draft, but like you said, they do bring in Mike Williams, who's if he has to stay healthy, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But when he is healthy, he's awesome. And Aaron Rodgers loves those back shoulder, you know, fades, and he's gonna throw them accurately and perfectly to Mike Williams. He'll come down with those. Aaron Rodgers loves Allen Lazard, who's really not a good receiver, but as long as Aaron Rodgers is throwing to him, they do have a good connection. Xavier Gibson in there as well, Malachi Corley, who I really loved, kind of a Debo type mold as a third round pick, and then the Garrett Wilson out of the Ohio State. I really love this guy. I'm drafting him over Puka Nacua in fantasy this year. I think he has a revelation season. Hopefully, Aaron Rodgers can stay healthy because if he does, they'll have a very beautiful connection. So I'm very much looking forward to Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. Him and Breece Hall deserve this because the last few years they've just been torn down. Just the wear and tear has been crazy because they just have to carry this offense by themselves with no offensive line, no quarterback play, no other weapons. It's been Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson versus the world. So now they have a lot of help, a great offensive line, and Aaron Rodgers to come in here and really help them. So I really am happy for them. I'm taking Breece Hall very early in fantasy. He's my RB2 in fantasy, and I really love him. I really think he's going to blow up like he did last year. He'll get a lot of catches. Aaron Rodgers loved throwing to Aaron Jones. I think it'll be the same. Then you look at the tackles. Tyron Smith was the fourth graded tackle in the NFL last year. Morgan Moses was the 10th graded tackle. And then you have a lot of interior options in John Simpson, Joe Tittman, Elijah Vera Tucker. You have Olu Fashanu as the swing tackle. It's a beautiful, beautiful team, man.
Yeah, I mean, this team, the depth is good. Like you were just saying, you have Max Mitchell, you have Olu Fashanu, you have these guys in case, a Tyrone Smith goes down or a case of Morgan Moses goes down. You have backups. You're running back Brees Hall, hopefully he doesn't have to do it all this year. Garrett Wilson, it's going to be just like you said, from a fantasy aspect, Garrett Wilson and Brees Hall should be high, 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 high on your radar because honestly, at their ADPs, their values right now, I think they're gonna way overpay it. Garrett Wilson, I think I get excited about wide receivers, but I legitimately think Garrett Wilson is a bona fide top five wide receiver this year. If he was able to put up back-to-back 1,000 yard seasons with the quarterback play and the line play from the last couple seasons, if he has a full season of Aaron Rodgers, I mean, this could be a Devontae Adams, 1,500 yards, 10 plus touchdowns type of season. So I'm going to throw that out there. That is going to be a hot take for me. If Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson stay healthy all season, I think you're seeing 10 plus touchdowns and 1,500 yards minimum. I don't even think that's that hot or bold of a take. I think it's very, very realistic. I think he can do it, and what he's been able to do. I mean, the touchdowns are gonna jump up. I mean, there's been no touchdowns over the last couple seasons, but expect Garrett Wilson to get in the end zone, early in the season and often throughout the season. And same thing with Brees Hall. He's going to be an absolute stud.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers just really would elevate this offense. He's so accurate. He's throws some beautiful balls. He's so smart with his throws as well. So I absolutely love the outlook for this team. I also love their draft. Like Braylon Allen was my RB2. You get him in the fourth round. He's already looked like a monster in the preseason. He's just a complete bowling ball, wrecking ball. As a running back, Isaiah Davis, we both like to get him in the fifth round because why not? Really fun team, man. Just an awesome team. Malachi Corley as well will be a really fun piece. I think he should be a starter sooner than later in the slot. So love the offense. We'll have the same conversation with the defense because it's just perfect. There isn't one weak spot in the entire defense. It's pretty absurd. I'd say it's top three defensive lock, and that might be even, a little bit conservative. They're probably going to be the best defense in the NFL again because they have pretty much the same defense minus Jordan Whitehead, and you bring in Hassan Reddick, maybe, hopefully, opposite of Jermaine Johnson, who had a really good season last year. Quinnen Williams was the third graded defensive lineman in the NFL last year. You bring in Javon Kinlaw. Linebackers are super solid with Sherwood, CJ Mosley still the top 10 graded linebackers. Same with Quincy Williams, just insane stuff. Quentin Williams' brother. And then the secondary, you got Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, Tony Adams on the back end, Chuck Clark. And then one of the more underrated slot corners right now is Michael Carter. He's been awesome for this team. And you had an 80.4 PFF grade last year. I mean, just look at the grades on this team. It's just an absurd team, superstars all around. Don't even really need to talk about it. Sauce Gardner, top 2 corner in the NFL, has been just a revelation. Beautiful stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just deep, man. And there's just, it's a deep team. Will McDonald is a former first overall pick. I even like the guy. I even go to Quantez Stiggers. You're one of your favorite guys out of the draft of the CFL. It's Ashton Davis. I mean, it's deep. It's a fun team, and like you said, there's not much to talk about because the defense is going to be locked for top 5, upside of top 2.
Absolutely. Do you want to, with that, let's just go into our record predictions, and I'll give mine first because I do have them finishing tied with third, which sounds a little bit harsh, but I'm just very high on all the teams in this division. The Jets, Bills, Dolphins. I think they're all going to be, it comes down to the last game of the season. I think they're all playoff teams. So don't hate me too much, but I have them finishing 10-7, tied with third, with the same record as the second team. So what is your prediction?
This is like our record prediction is close, but just where they finish is like this is like the one team so far throughout the series that we just haven't agreed on. But yeah, I'm going to be 11-6 on the Jets and have them finishing actually first in this division. I think this is the best team in the division. Um, the other teams, I feel like they're kind of regressed. I feel like they're kind of coming out of the prime. I feel like the Bills and the Dolphins have been on this high, and they just have not been able to get over the hump. And you know, Matt Milano goes down. Sorry, another tangent, but I mean, that's a big, big, big piece of their defense out, and that's going to affect the team. So I don't see how the Jets, I just feel like the Jets just honestly just got better. I feel like they could compete with these teams just based off of their defense. And they had no offensive quarterback or they had no quarterback last year that could compete, but now you bring in Aaron Rodgers and I think they'll run this division. I think they'll knock off Josh Allen. I think they'll knock off Tua. And I think it's just because this defense is so strong and the offense is just going to be able to get enough done, to overcome that. So I'm very high on the Jets. I think they're a playoff lock this year, and I'm excited to watch this team, man. They are a hell of a football team, and I just don't see any weaknesses, and I think the depth's great.
Yeah, I will say off roster, I will acknowledge fully the Jets have the best roster in this division. They have the best team on paper. My fear and why I couldn't rank them with the best record is I do have a fear that there's a lot of veterans that are injury prone on this team. So I don't know if I fully can just bet on them all finishing the season. But if they do, then this roster is just there all season. They will be the best team in this division. So I definitely get
Yeah,
that thinking, and that's my
yeah,
justification.
yeah. No, I mean, saying Tyrone Smith, Aaron Rodgers, Mike Williams are gonna are like you're telling me all three of those guys are gonna finish the whole season. You're probably crazy. So, and Morgan Moses, yeah, you're right on thinking with that. But yeah, if this roster is able to stay healthy, I think it's one of the best in the NFL.
Absolutely. And they do bring in some good contingency plans like Olu Fashanu. But with that, let's go on to the Miami Dolphins, a very polarizing team. They finished 11-6 last year. They had the playoff loss to the Chiefs. Very busy offseason. Let's go right into their offseason because they might have been the most active team all offseason. If you just look at these additions, it's kind of ridiculous. The longest list that we'll see this whole series, a very active offseason. So let's get right into it. This squad is just insane on paper. They bring in Aaron Brewer to start at center from Tennessee. They bring in Kendall Fuller and Jordan Poyer to start on that defensive secondary, which is pretty fun. That's a pretty insane addition to add to Jalen Ramsey. They bring in Anthony Walker and Jordan Brooks as linebackers, who are significant upgrades. They bring in Calais Campbell and Neville Gallimore to kind of replace their biggest loss, Christian Wilkins, who is a loss. He's a stud. The Raiders got a complete stud in Wilkins, but they do bring in they throw a lot of darts at the interior defensive line, which I do like. And they also lose Rob Hunt, who gets $100 million by the Panthers. So that is a little bit unfortunate, but the rest of the names that moved on, I'm really not worried about at all. Brandon Jones, I thought he was overrated. Broncos overpaid him. Van Ginkel was actually really solid, but you have a lot of edge players in this roster anyway. So the additions are really fun. You bring in Odell Beckham Jr. because why not? You've got so many receivers, but he's a pretty fun high floor slot receiver. Yeah, pretty damn fun team.
Hey, they haven't updated this. What's his name at the bottom tier? Tart. That's
Yeah.
a Charger, baby. That is a Los Angeles Charger as of yesterday. So shout out the Bolts for getting a solid defensive tackle.
Yeah, hopefully they update it by our AFC West deep dive.
Yes, sir. But yeah, this is a fun. I mean, as you can see from this graphic, it is the most, active team. I mean, but bringing in guys like Jordan Poyer, Odell Beckham Jr., Jordan Brooks, Anthony Walkers, you get a lot of veteran presence that, have a lot of winning experience and should help this team a lot. So it is going to be very exciting. I think, everything they lost, they were able to gain back and a little bit more. And I really like what they did throughout the draft, as well, bringing in a Chop Robinson, Patrick Paul, Jalen Wright, Muhammad Kamara. It was an interesting draft. And you also got Taj Washington and Malik Washington to add to this stacked wide receiver core of just, absolute weapons. So it was a fun offseason. Definitely different than what I would have done and what I expected, but I do like the players. I like the end result, but there was some draft picks and stuff that I definitely did scratch my head on as the Chop Robinson over um excuse me, who did the Bucks draft?
Oh, Graham Barton. That would
Yeah,
be
Graham Barton. But yeah, I mean over Tyler Guyton, it's just there's some stuff that definitely did I scratch my head over, in the draft side of things.
Yeah, going into that, I would have added some more offensive line help, just knowing how offensive line really ruined their season last year when injuries happened. It ruined their season. You see this guy right here, Connor Williams. I would have brought him back too late now. He's a Seahawk, so that's a little bit unfortunate. Isaiah Wynn is on the pup right now, so that's scary because Eichenberg will be starting. But let's go on to the lineup. You see Isaiah Wynn here, but he is on the pup, so it will be Eichenberg starting at left guard. You have a decent starting five. You lose Rob Hunt, so Robert Jones will be starting at right guard. Austin Jackson's actually pretty solid right tackle. Teron Armstead is a very solid left tackle, but the question is how long will he play? I do like Patrick Paul. He's a lot of upside, but if he has to play early, I'm not too confident in it because he does have a lot to kind of polish in his game. Let's talk about the positives, though. Let's talk about this silly array of weapons that the Dolphins have. Like just looking at this is it's pretty comical. You got the number one graded receiver in the NFL and Tyreek Hill, 93.4 grade. My take is that Tyreek Hill is just the most dominant player in NFL history that's not a quarterback. Just how are you guarding this guy? He's the most unguardable player in the sport history, in my opinion, because I don't think we've ever seen anyone like him. You have Jalen Waddle, who was the seventh graded receiver last year, pretty incredible, the 90.3 PFF grade. That's just silly. You bring in Odell because why not? I actually really liked Malik Washington and Taj Washington, so a lot of receiving options. Your running back room was just silly. Raheem Mostert was the fifth graded running back. I love Devon Achane. I'm taking them in drafts because I just think you're kind of a scared if you don't take him. I think he is the stupidest potential to win you your league, and you just kind of have to just balls up and take him. He's really worth the upside shot. Tua, seventh graded quarterback last year because he's a really just solid point guard to kind of get it to all these options. He knows this offense in and out, which is why they paid him. So he does have his flaws. I am lower on Tua than a lot of people. I would have maybe even moved on from him. I wouldn't have paid him that contract for sure. I would have let it ride out. I think there's some quarterbacks, a decent amount of quarterbacks that could get the same production in this specific offense. But yeah, very fun array of weapons. And I do want to talk about Aaron Brewer, abysmal pass blocker. I don't think that he's going to be starting for this team for too long. 52 pass block grade last year. He's a solid run blocker for sure, but the pass blocking is going to be very scary in this fit, in this scheme, in this offense. The way they play, I am very scared about their center situation. And if any injuries happen on the offensive line, I am scared. But the weapons are maybe the best in the NFL.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, this is the track team of the NFL. I mean, you have the two fastest wide receivers in the NFL. You add a Taj Washington and a Malik Washington, who are blazing fast as well. And then your three running backs all run 4.3s. I mean, it is crazy. I mean, Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane, and Jalen Wright, who just ran a 4.34. I mean, Jalen Wright ran a 4.34 at 5'11", 216 pounds. So he's a big man moving. So, I mean, you got an absolute track team, an electric offense that is just freaky when it gets into open space because no one's touching them. But yeah, like you said, I think Tua is a very good point guard. Tua freaks me the hell out when it comes to cold weather football, arm strength. I think when it comes to a difficult situation, I feel like it's hard for him to overcome. But like when the sun's shining, and making haze good, Tua's he's a great quarterback. But when it's cold weather, when the environment's not ideal, when they're down, I just feel like he tends to get in his head, make dumb mistakes, and he's just not very good come crunch time and around that cold weather playoffs. I just don't think he is a strong enough quarterback. Maybe that's what his problem is when it comes that time. I think he's a little bit of a head case when it gets in a bad situation. But I mean, when the going's good, I mean, Tua is incredible. I mean, he's very accurate. He's very on time. He gets the ball out to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, incredibly fast, accurate on a dime. So, I mean, there is good parts of Tua's game. But like you said, I mean, $250 million for Tua, I think is a little outlandish. I think it's a little crazy. I think it was a little preemptive. I think they should have let him play this year and maybe prove what he could do in the playoffs if he could make it to the playoffs and then give him that contract. But I think they definitely overpaid. But I get it because quarterbacks are scarce and hard to find in the NFL, and you have a guy that is, better than some teams and that can be that point guard, but it is a little scary for this team's future given to a $250 million, and especially when you have such expensive wide receivers.
Yeah, it is getting over that big game hump for me, which is why I wouldn't have paid him until he gets over that big game hump, till he wins one of those really big games and kind of, does it himself. He doesn't rely on others. And Jordan Love won himself a playoff game. I totally was okay with paying him that contract. Tua, I still just need to see it personally. And yeah, I do think the downfall of this team would be the same as last year. It's the injuries on the offensive line. That's ultimately the only really downside on this team. Everything else just has infinite upside. They bring in Jonnu Smith as well, fun tight end addition. We'll go into the defense. It's kind of a similar situation. Speedy, stacked, solid. You don't really have a weak spot on this team. You do have Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips both coming back from injury. Looks like Jalen Phillips will be back very soon. He's already starting to kind of practice and get back into things. I don't exactly know when Chubb will be back, but they attack the edge position this offseason. They bring in Chop Robinson in the first round, who I really loved. I had him as a top 5 edge rusher. Insane upside. I really see a very high upside for that player. So I love the situation he's in where he doesn't have to start day one and he can kind of develop behind some guys. You do lose Shaq Barrett, but we both said that Mo Camara, coming out of Colorado State as well, kind of undersized, had the same knocks as Shaq Barrett. We both said that he was a Shaq Barrett clone. So the fact that he comes into a literal Shaq Barrett role where he's replacing him, it is kind of ideal and it really should help his development. So you were really high on him. Speaking of, you were really high. I guess we can go back to offense for 1 second. You had Jalen Wright as RB1 over Jonathan Brooks. So you were high on some of these Dolphins picks for sure.
I was very high at a second round grade on a Mo Camara. He actually was in my top 5 edge rushers, so very, very high on him. Jalen Wright was my favorite running back out of Tennessee. I mean, the guy who just has blazing speed. He's a big, powerful guy too. He can catch the ball extremely well. And so yeah, I mean, I did like their draft picks a lot. I mean, I liked Chop Robinson a lot. I know you were very high on Chop Robinson. You thought, he's one of the most athletic freaks, one of the most high upside guys. However, I did not love that pick for the situation. I really wish they would have attacked offensive line in the first round. I would have loved to seen a Graham Barton. Hell, I would have loved to seen a Jackson Powers Johnson, slot in at guard or center, depending where you need him most. But, I thought there was definitely some good linemen on the board, and that's kind of the only thing I could differ from their draft on.
Yeah, and then going on to the rest of their defense, you bring in Jordan Brooks, a really fun linebacker over from Seattle. David Long, who was awesome last year. They brought him over from Tennessee, and I was really happy about that signing. So you've got 2 solid linebackers, and you also bring in Anthony Walker as your third linebacker. So that's a very solid 3 deep at linebacker. Your secondary is just absolutely beautiful now with You obviously have Jalen Ramsey. Everyone knows he's been that dog. He's a top 5 corner in the NFL, has been for a very, very long time. He is just an absolute menace out there. Opposite of him, you bring in Kendall Fuller, which will really help him. CB2 was a little bit of a weakness for this team last year. Now you have Kendall Fuller. So I'm very, very excited about that. As you see, he was a 7th graded corner in the NFL last year. So that's pretty beautiful. And then the back end, you've got Jordan Poyer, who's used to playing with Micah Hyde, and that was the best safety duo in the NFL. Now you've got Javon Holland with Jordan Poyer. So that is a very beautiful, beautiful thing. Javon Holland was the 3rd highest graded safety in the NFL last year. I loved him coming out of Oregon, was really high on him. I compared him to Antoine Winfield, and they both really just bloomed and hit their upside very fast. And I think they're both top all-pro caliber safeties. Cater Kohu's a really solid slot corner. He came out of nowhere, and he's been very solid for this team. You got Ciaran Neal as well coming over from Buffalo. Cam Smith was a decent draft pick. So you got some depth on this team. You got some stars on this team. I really like that out. And you got Emmanuel Ogba as well. I didn't even mention him with the edge rushers. You got some depth on this team to rotate around.
You got Storm Duck too, so don't forget about him.
Oh, the best name in the NFL, Storm Duck. And then I didn't even mention that interior defensive line. You do lose the boy to Oakland. I'm forgetting his name right now.
Oh,
Christian Wilkins.
yes.
Christian Wilkins.
Christian
But Zach
Wilkins and
Sealer,
Max Crosby. That's going to be a scary
that's
deal.
that's
It's
scary. I'm
terrible.
excited to talk about the AFC West because that division is just stacked. And yeah, Wilkins is going to be someone that they miss. He's been awesome for this team for a while. He was a great draft pick, but Zach Sealer is awesome. You do have Emmanuel Ogba who can play inside. Jalen Phillips could maybe even play inside. I do really. Neville Gallimore was a pretty good signing, so I do think this defense is pretty solid.
Yeah, I do too. I think the Dolphins defense is gonna outperform what most people think. But yeah, I mean, like you said, this secondary is awesome, man. I mean, pairing Javon Holland with Jordan Poyer and then having Kendall Fuller and Jalen Ramsey and Cater Kohu in the slot, it's damn near perfect. And then you got Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips already, and then obviously you have your 2 young studs in Mo Camara and
Uh,
my gosh, Chop Robinson, excuse me, brain fart. But yeah, just guys with freaky upside, freaky athleticism, and it's just this team is built different. I mean, they're literally the fastest team in football, and speed kills, man. So they're going to be able to get after the quarterback. They're going to be able to burn you deep, through the offense. So they're an exciting, fun team, and as far as Tua can go, come crunch time, come playoff time is how far they can go. And that's really going to be a true testament if he really is a $250 million quarterback this year.
yeah, it'll be a very telling season, 100%. But with that, do you want to give your record prediction for the Dolphins?
Yes, I have the Dolphins at 10-7, a very respectable record in a very hard division. Um, and I have them finishing third. And I will explain more when we get to the Bills, but I just do think the Jets and the Bills have a quarterbacks that can win in tougher situations, can play in the cold, are used to it, have been there, done that. So I really think it's just Tua's got to prove it to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have them finishing as the same record as you at 10-7, but I do have them tying with the Jets, but having the tiebreaker and finishing second in the division. So I have them with the same record as the Jets, but finishing second in the division at 10-7. Vegas has them with a 9.5 win total over under. So we're kind of, right there. We're taking the over barely on this team, and it's a very, very fun team. And with that, do you want to go on to the last team we'll talk about, the Buffalo Bills? And it's a different conversation than the Dolphins and Jets because this is a roster that doesn't really shape up to the Dolphins and Jets, but there's a quarterback that is kind of I'll just say it, the most valuable player in the NFL. Probably was the MVP last year if you just go off the name, most valuable player. Looking at this roster that you'll see in a second, Josh Allen just completely puts the team on his back. He's the running back, he's the quarterback of this team, he's everything of this team. Matt Milano went down last year and he had to do everything. And Matt Milano just got injured badly again, so he'll have to do it again. And I kind of think he will because he's that guy.
Josh Allen's damn near the linebacker one of this team. He's the wide receiver one. He's tight end two because Dalton Kincaid is him. He's defensive end number one. He is that guy. But yeah, like you said, Josh Allen is just a different kind of species. He is he is cut from a different cloth than most. He is, he's an animal, man. Like you said, he really was the most valuable player in the NFL. If he was in Patrick Mahomes' situation, I would have no doubt that he would have as many rings because he is, as talented. I don't know if he's as clutch, but he is as talented, if not more talented than, a guy like Patrick Mahomes.
Absolutely. I'll never forget that playoff game that he had in Kansas City a few years where he was just going back and forth with Mahomes. He had like 5 touchdowns, deep balls to Gabe Davis. That was one of the most fun performances I've ever seen. As you see right here, the last game they played lost by 3 to the Chiefs in Kansas City. So very unfortunate. They will have a kind of a revenge season with a very pissed off mentality. They finished 11-6 last year with the number 2 seed in the AFC. It was looking like for a second, remember after that Broncos loss, it was looking like they might miss the playoffs. And then Josh Allen just turned it around, completely put the team on a backpack and just ran them to the number 2 seed in the AFC. It was pretty damn impressive what he did. And the thing is I kind of expect him to do the exact same thing again this year when we look at the roster. We'll go on to the offseason additions. They didn't really get too much better this offseason, didn't really add anything crazy, but they have the alien that we'll talk about. We'll talk about their offseason additions first. They kind of just re-signed some players. They re-signed Daquan Jones, is very solid. They bring in Curtis Samuel, who's a fun slot receiver. It's kind of an interesting pairing with the rest of the receiver room. They also bring in Keon Coleman, who I think it's a dream fit for Keon Coleman. I think he'll really, really boom with this team. I'm targeting him in fantasy football. He's going to be a starting receiver for Josh Allen. On the outside, he's a different prototype than the rest of the receivers in this room as well. So I really am high on Keon Coleman. I think the hate on him in the draft, the pre-draft process was a little bit overstated. And I think he could be, this is just the perfect situation for him as well. So I was high on Keon Coleman. I think the situation is just completely perfect. You bring in some smaller names, Austin Johnson, you bring in Matt Collins and MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who's good for like 1 deep touchdown in the playoffs, and that's about it. Mike Edwards. And then your losses are Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs, who we both were pounding the table to get Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis out of this team. Stephon Diggs was just a toxic locker room piece. He was a head case. He wasn't worth it because he wasn't good last year at all. As a receiver, Gabe Davis was the same. He's just inconsistent as hell, the most inconsistent that I've ever seen. You lose Leonard Floyd, Dayton Jackson, and then the one that hurts is Matt Milano does have a serious injury again now for the 2nd season in a row, and that one will really, really, really hurt. And then they also lose Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, which hurts a little bit as well.
100%. I just want to talk about their draft class really quick. Obviously, Keon Coleman should be a big, fun offensive weapon for Josh Allen. I mean, he is a big, tall, fast wide receiver. Cole Bishop, we got to shout him out, man. Just right now, that was one of our favorite players. He goes in the the 2nd round, the 60th overall pick. He should be somebody exciting. Can kind of maybe even, kind of be the leader of that defense, just an ultra smart safety that can kind of play everywhere on the field. Dwayne Carter, Ray Davis to add a nice 1-2 punch with James Cook, Cedric Van Pran, who I absolutely love, the center out of Georgia. But yeah, I mean, I thought they absolutely knocked it out of the park with their draft. I really liked a lot of the players that they brought in. So overall, I do feel like it wasn't a crazy offseason, but you did get some good pieces. You didn't lose a ton. Stephon Diggs, obviously, he was a bona fide superstar a couple of years ago, but you got out of his contract. You get rid of him, and you move on. And I really do like Curtis Samuel. I think the Bills offense is going to heavily rely on Curtis Samuel. I think he's going to be a key piece to this offense. He can kind of do everything. He can line out wide. He can play the slot. He can take handoffs. And so watch out for him to be, the queen chess piece on the Bills offense, because he's going to be moved all over the place. And from a fantasy aspect, I want all the Curtis Samuel I can get, because I'm super excited what he can add to this offense.
All right, well, good transition. Let's play a little game here. I'm going to put you on the spot and we'll talk about the weapons on this team. And I want you to rank the weapons in terms of how you would want them in fantasy. Who are you, targeting in fantasy of all these guys? So you got Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, Matt Collins, MVS, and KJ Hamler. How are you ranking these guys in fantasy?
Oh gosh,
I have
if
I have to
I'm
add Dalton Kincaid into this discussion as well because he's kind of a
uh,
receiver. He's kind of a
yeah,
receiver.
Dalton Kincaid's wide receiver one. I mean, that's gonna. I mean, if I'm going off of who I want, and we're not talking about James Cook or Josh Allen, right? in
Just
this.
receivers.
Just receivers. Okay. All right. Number one, Dalton Kincaid, because I mean the dude's just a reincarnation of Travis Kelce, and you're gonna start to see that this year. He's gonna be the wide receiver one, tight end one. He's gonna get the most receptions on this team, 100% guaranteed. I promise you that. He's incredible. Just watch out just for I mean, he was incredible as a rookie last year. I think he's going to be twice as good this year. So it is Dalton Kincaid is my very favorite. Next guy I'm taking a chance on. You know, if it's dynasty, it's obviously Keon Coleman, but for this year, I am a little bit higher on Curtis Samuel than those two. So I'm taking Curtis Samuel because I think he is going to be used, you know, kind of like that Debo Samuel role of a couple of years ago. He's going to take handoffs. He's going to be, you know, getting a lot of targets in the short game, intermediate game. He finds his way into the end zone. So Curtis Samuel too. Um, Gosh, between Shakir and Coleman, I think I still am leaning Coleman just because I like the size. I like the red zone capability of Keon Coleman. So I'm going Coleman 3, Shakir 4. And I think Shakir, um, I believe he was number one in yards over expectancy last year and number one in it was two really good categories. I can't remember. I just watched a video on it today and I should have refreshed it. But he was over expectancy in every single target and catch he would get. He'd perform above what was expected. So he could be a sneakily good fantasy player. And then of course I want all the Josh Allen stock I can get. I don't really care. If you've seen, we've done a lot of mock drafts together. You've seen how high I've been taking Josh Allen just because he is a freak and he is a fantasy god. It's just he is the number one scorer in any fantasy platform almost every year. So
Mhm. Yeah, I absolutely love it. I agree with what you said about the receivers. They're all at the end of the day great values in fantasy. Like, just get your hands on one of these insane values. They're all going so late, and they're all starting receivers in this Josh Allen led offense who's going to be airing the ball
they're
out.
sorry to cut you off, but they're not Justin Jefferson, they're not Jamar Chase, but the ADP and the values, they're gonna pay off. They're gonna pay off. Obviously, they're not that bona fide superstar. I think Kincaid can be. I think he will be this year, but they're not there yet. So right now at their ADPs, you know, and I don't think any of these receivers are gonna turn into a Justin Jefferson, but they're just gonna be solid role players that will pay off their fantasy value.
Yeah, they're all just going very, very late. Like you said, Khalil Shakir, he has the upside to be like one of the best slot receivers in the NFL with Josh Allen. He loves attacking the slot receivers, and he was incredible at the end of the year last year. And yeah, Dalton Kincaid, one of my favorite values in fantasy. He's going as a tight end 5. He's my tight end 2 because I really do agree. I do think he's a wide receiver 1 for Josh Allen and a Josh Allen led offense who's going to play hero ball all year and put the team on his back. And he's going to throw a lot of touchdowns to Kincaid as well. I'm not scared about Dawson Knox. I think he's a very solid all-around tight end that will help block. But Kincaid is going to be wide receiver 1 for this team, in my opinion. I'm really drafting a lot of Keon Coleman for that upside. Khalil Shakir is going to be a very high floor option, just get a lot of PPR points. So really love this team. James Cook, I'm also drafting a lot of in the round 3. I think he's a very fun option who you said he was projected 17 points week 1. He averaged a lot of points last year. I think he's going to be a good fantasy option if he falls in your ESPN leagues. I think he could be a very good option. And then yeah, Josh Allen, the number 1 graded quarterback in PFF last year, 92 grade, the best fantasy quarterback. Like I said, I think he's the MVP of the league. Just with looking at this roster and what he does with his team, made them the number 2 seed in the NFL after a period of time where it was looking like they had missed the playoffs, lose by 3 to the Super Bowl champion Chiefs. This guy's incredible. He's an alien out of Wyoming. He was always an alien. The offensive line's a little bit improved. They do have David Edwards coming in, who has that 90 PFF grade last time he played. It has been a minute since he's played, but he's awesome. Spencer Brown's kind of been a revelation at right tackle. Deion Dawkins was a great, great that they paid him to keep him in at left tackle. And then your questions are kind of just Connor McGovern and Osiris Torrance, who kind of, I was really high on him out of Florida, and he kind of disappointed as a rookie, but I do expect him to have a pretty big leap. So this offense could just be incredible, and I'm targeting it in fantasy a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I'm very excited for this offense, and yeah, from a fantasy aspect, the ADPs are gonna pay the value. So get your hands on the Bills offense. Draft Josh Allen early. He's gonna pay off. You know, he's the only guy that's really going high. So just get all the Bills stock. Dalton Kincaid, me and Danny are gonna tell you right now. that's a dude. That's a dude. That's gonna be he's gonna be one of these premier tight ends here, in the next year or two.
Yeah, absolutely. You got Josh Allen, who it's not even a discussion anymore. He is the second best quarterback in the NFL, kind of in his own tier behind Mahomes. And yeah, we're talking about Kincaid. We're talking him up more than ever. He was literally my favorite prospect in the draft last year. I said that he had shades of Travis Kelce, and he really does the way that he wins routes, the way that he has the zone feel, and in the way that he just plays. We both have season tickets to Utah, and we see a lot of these players. I love Dalton Kincaid, and going into the defense, I love Cole Bishop. What I saw was like a kind of a Micah Hyde type player where he can play slot corner, which he played a lot of at Utah. He can play free safety, strong safety. I think he starts over DeMar Hamlin. Kind of silly that DeMar Hamlin's on this graphic. Maybe he starts like week one, but Cole Bishop will be the starting safety of this defense. He will maybe even be a leader of this defense as a rookie. I'm very, very excited for Cole Bishop. Saw him up close and personal. He's just a dog. He can do it all. He's a very versatile Swiss Army knife for this team, the perfect Micah Hyde replacement. I guess we can stick with the secondary. Taylor Rapp is a all right running mate with him. Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde leaving is a very big loss. They were the best safety duo in the NFL. Corner wise, you're sitting pretty. You've got Christian Benford, who was the eighth rated corner last year with the 83 PFF grade. Rasul Douglas, who was a trade deadline addition from the Packers, and he was a revelation coming over. He kind of helped them with that playoff push and really was dominant at the end of the season. So him on the outside is awesome. And then Teron Johnson, one of the most solid out of nowhere slot corners in the NFL out of Weber State. Really a good playmaker. He'll make a lot of interceptions. He picked off Patrick Mahomes. He's got a very high IQ. So love that. The linebackers is where it gets scary because Matt Milano does have a very serious injury. So Terrell Bernard, who's been awesome, is going to have to really step up, as well as your boy, Dorian Williams, who you loved last year. He's going to really just have to go out there and really ball out.
Yes, you're exactly right. Yeah, I mean, Matt Milano might just be, the second biggest soul crushing, player to this team to go down outside of Josh Allen. I mean, it just affects the defense tremendously.
We saw it
And
last year.
oh yeah, I mean, it was, a defense that was competitive, was a better defense, and you saw Matt Milano go out and it's like the team fell apart. So it's just kind of crazy what one single leader on your team can do, especially one who's playing that green dot role. So yeah, Dorian Williams, athletic linebacker out of Tulane, somebody who I really loved. Hopefully, one of these guys can step up and be that green dot, be that leader, run this defense. But there is good players on this defense, but I don't know, I am a little underwhelmed. Obviously, Cole Bishop, super excited. He is a rookie. I have no doubt he's going to be incredible. I mean, who knows? You could probably even give him the green dot role at safety because he is just incredibly smart. He is that Swiss Army knife. He can kind of play him in that Derwin James, that Kyle Hamilton type role where, you bring him up to rush the passer, you put him at linebacker, you put him at nickel. He can kind of do it all. So he is going to be just an incredible piece. I am a little bit more scared of this defense than I am, like the Jets. I'm even a little bit higher on the Dolphins defense this year. But the defense is kind of what scares me. But then there's Josh Allen who can put up 40 points a game. So it doesn't worry me all that much.
Yeah, it's also worrisome watching Von Miller last year. As you see, he had that 53 PFF grade. He was a bad football player last year, which pains me to say. He's my favorite football player in NFL history. I absolutely love the guy, but he was not good. Playoffs, he was a revelation. He was great because Von Miller lives for the playoffs. He will put the team on his back in the playoffs and really just find that vintage Von Miller for him. But he needs to find that again this year. I don't think he'll be starting. I think it'll be AJ Epinesa starting opposite of Greg Rousseau, who Greg Rousseau was awesome last year, 87 PFF grade. He's fantastic. I loved him coming out of Miami. He's been awesome. Daquan Jones needs to stay healthy on the interior. Ed Oliver has to keep improving. He had a pretty solid year last year. He needs to keep that up and keep improving. There is some upside. Maybe Von Miller can, be better coming off that injury, but this defense really needs to just all step up all around for the absence of Matt Milano. But with that, do you want to give your record prediction?
Yeah. I'm gonna be giving this team a 10-7 record prediction, which is tied with the Miami Dolphins. But when it comes to crunch time, I'm taking my boy Josh Allen over Tua. I've seen it too many times. I saw it last year in two consecutive games. Josh Allen's just, a different type of player. He is in that alien tier where Tua is not, and that's going to be the difference between those two teams, and that's why I have the Bills finishing second.
Yeah, I love it. I have an 11-6 record for the Bills, finishing first in the division, thanks to that Josh Hero ball that he'll be playing. I think it'll be the exact same as last year. It'll come down to the last week of the season between the Jets, Dolphins, and Bills. I think it'll be a very, very tight race at the end, but I think the best quarterback of all will prevail, and Josh Allen will get them that high seed and maybe make a push to to take down the Darth Chiefs at this point and maybe be the team that can take down Mahomes. And those Mahomes Allen playoff battles are the most fun battles in sports right now, really, if I'm being honest. Definitely in football. That's the most fun matchup. So love, love, love the Bills, love the outlook. The Bills have a 10.5 Vegas win total over under right now. So I'm right above them. I'm actually taking the over because I just love this team so much. I love Josh so much. I'm confident that he will be that guy. But with that, do you want to go on to your division award winners? Do you want to go into your offensive MVP for the AFC East?
Yes, so let's just get right into it. Yes, my offensive MVP is obvious. It is Josh Allen. And like you just said, he may be the Luke Skywalker that can take down the evil empire. We hope. We hope good prevails. We hope good eventually wins. We want to see the downfall of the Chiefs. So we want the empire to be destroyed. And this guy's got as good of chance as anyone to do it. He is, quite possibly the MVP of the NFL, every single year. He's a superstar. He's an alien. He's a freak. He's an athlete like we haven't seen before. He's a different kind of player. So, if anyone's going to take down the evil empire, it can be Josh Allen.
Yeah, it was really hard in this division specifically because just by the name, most valuable player, I think the two most valuable players in the NFL are Josh Allen and Tyreek Hill. So unfortunate that we couldn't choose Tyreek Hill, but like I said, I think Josh Allen might have been the MVP last year. Think I'll put some money down on him to win the MVP of the NFL this year. Really stacked, loaded division. A few names to shout out, but yeah, Tyreek Hill definitely deserves that shout out because we see how valuable he is for the Dolphins. We see what that team looks like without him. Just imagine this team without Josh Allen. So that's kind of our reasoning there. Give me your defensive MVP for this division.
I'm gonna go with Sauce Gardner. One of my favorite corners in the NFL. A name. Like Sauce. He's gonna go out there. This team didn't get any worse. In fact, they got better. And wins will help a player, achieve, awards better. And so I think the only thing missing from Sauce's resume right now is a win, is a playoff win. But I just expect another incredible season from this guy, and he's just such a lockdown, shutdown corner, and he's flashy, man. He's gonna get those interceptions, he's gonna get those pass defenses, he's gonna be in your face, he's gonna be talking. He's that dude. He's the Jalen Ramsey. He's up there with the Pat Surtans. He's just that guy.
Yeah, generational corner sauces, 100%. In his own tier as a top two corner with Sertan. I went a different direction. Christian Gonzalez Gonzo, one of my favorite players in the NFL. And I'm not saying that he's better than Sauce Gardner at all. I don't think he's a better corner than Sauce Gardner, but cornerback is the most volatile position in the NFL. It kind of fluctuates who's the best corner in the NFL every year. And I do think if Gonzo has a fully healthy season, he could be a top five corner in the NFL and have a revelation season. So I predict a massive breakout season for Christian Gonzalez. Like I said, coming out of Oregon, I thought he was just built in a lab to be a star corner. He's speedy, he's got size, he's physical, he can press, he can run with you, he can mirror you, he can really do it all. So three of the top corners, honestly, in the NFL with Christian Gonzalez, Sauce Gardner, and Jalen Ramsey in this division. You could totally shout them all out. Fun corner, secondary play in this division. But yeah, I'm going to go with the bold pick here.
I really like that. I mean, like you said, it is a constant fluctuating position. The young guys are always coming up, and from the little glimpses we saw last year of Christian Gonzalez, I think that's a really solid pick because he's going to be something special.
Absolutely. Give me your rookie of the year for the AFC East.
I'm gonna go Keon Coleman with this one, and that's because I like the situation he comes into. He comes into a situation where pretty much 80% of the volume from the wide receiver room is gone with Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis out, and so you obviously go out, you get this guy with your first pick, and he's a big physical freak. And, I don't think he's in that, Kelvin Benjamin tier. I think he's going to be, more of that Mike Williams-esque wide receiver, obviously a little different play style. But I think this guy, has as good of opportunities as any rookie, to have volume touchdowns and just a great opportunity to play with a great quarterback and really, excel from that and really raise his potential playing with Josh Allen. So I expect big things from Keon Coleman.
Yeah, draft him in fantasy. Honestly, one of the best positions a rookie's ever gone into. You're may arguably the wide receiver one on the outside for Joshua Allen. That's pretty beautiful stuff. I went with Drake May. I think eventually when he gets a hold of that starting job, he just looks so good that he will end up being the rookie of the year in this division because I think that he is a, like I said, Jordan Love, Justin Herbert type of prospect. Could be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL by a year or two from now. I absolutely love him, so I will go with him as the rookie of the year just because I think he'll really make Patriots fans happy and hopeful going into 2025 and going into the future when they see this guy, when they see his arm, when they see his processing. He's just so fun. I'm very confident this guy is going to be a guy. We could also shout out Cole Bishop, our guy. He's going to be awesome. Hopefully, he starts ASAP because he could be a leader for that Bills team. The Bills had a pretty solid draft. With that, do you want to go into our division award winners real quick for anyone skipping around?
Well, let's do it. For those of you who are too lazy to watch the entire video, this is the moment you've all been waiting for. For those of you who stuck around and listened to all four of the different divisions, you're a real OG, you're a goat. But yes, our division winners, I have the Jets at 11-6. The resurgence of Aaron Rodgers, if he can stay healthy, the overall talent of the team. I just think this is the best team in the AFC East. I think this is one of the best teams in the AFC. The sky's the limit, and I think the potential of a lot of these Garrett Wilsons, Brees Halls is really going to be shown this year. So just watch out for the Jets because they could be something scary.
Yeah, it's going to be a tight arms race at the very end of the season. It'll go down to the last week of the season with the Jets, Dolphins, and Bills for me. But I do have the Bills edging it out just like they did last year with that 11-6 record. I think they do end up with the highest seed in this division because of that guy right there, Josh Allen. I think he's just too valuable. He'll do crazy, crazy stuff again and just put this team on his back and get there in the end and face the Chiefs. Very, very fun episode. Super incredibly stacked division, just four really good teams on paper to talk about. Do you have any extra hot takes before we get out of here?
Yeah, I'll throw one out there that I was kind of drumming up in my head a little bit. It might be kind of stupid, but an exit hot take is I think Tyreek Hill could be the cover of Madden in 2026. So just something to throw out there. I think he's capable of a 2,000-yard season, and if somehow the Dolphins, which is very realistic, win a playoff game and they have that kind of resume, watch out for Tyreek Hill, to be the offensive MVP and to finally get that Madden cover that he deserves.
Yeah, voted the #1 player in the entire NFL in the NFL Top 100 by his peers. Can I say something though? I disagree. I don't think Tyreek Hill could be a Madden cover just because of off the field, him. I don't know if that would be like legally a thing that they could do.
you know, I forgot that there's some beating child allegations. So, maybe yeah, you might be right. That might have been one of the worst things hot takes. You might be right on that one.
Yeah, Josh Allen will be my. I'm gonna switch up the X hot take because my X hot take is Josh Allen is the Madden cover by next season. I think Josh Allen is that guy. He completely deserves it, and he doesn't have 26 different allegations thrown at him. So really fun. Deep dive. Our next one will be the NFC East, and then we'll all finish it out with the AFC and NFC West. Super super exciting. Thank you guys for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace out.
Josh Allen never punched a kid.